So we haven't done a just Pablo and Chandeep talking about various items podcast, a video series, and since our first initial one. And we've now had five guests on the show. So it's been a lot of learnings since that point. And Pablo, you do generally at the end of every episode, I feel like you do an incredible job of summarizing what we've talked about in that episode, right? And in that show. How has your general feel been around what we're doing, how you're feeling now versus when we started, and where we see this going in your eyes?
Yeah, it feels great. I love how it doesn't feel like a job. First of all, it's organic, and when we show up genuinely and honestly. It doesn't feel like it's a to do thing, which I love it. And as far as how it's been flowing, really excited about the topics we've been covering and the important, like, very direct questions. I love how we all start, we get with the vulnerability and the transparency. Um, we get really a little bit uncomfortable, or just excited, or whatever these sensations may be labeled as. And I love to get that feedback from myself and from our guests, and from you when we're going through the conversation. Um, and yeah, I mean, to me, the conversations that really pop are the ones that are really honest and very open. Um, because otherwise it sounds like just another speaker giving a presentation from the ego and not from the heart, from the mind and not from the heart. And and that bores me, so it's like the guests that we've had have really, when they take that time to be like, oh, that's an important question, like, oh wow, that's a good question, that's like, yeah, okay, good, let's build on that. um I like that. That feels good. How do you feel?
I feel blessed to have these kind of people in my life and just being able to talk to them and ask them what they're going through. I think I mentioned earlier with when we were doing the podcast with Yuli that I'm just asking him questions and hearing him go through stuff that directly relate to my life. And it's great to understand somebody else's perspective on how they're dealing with that, right? I think with Brandon, just what he's been able to do on a large scale has been so impressive. And his flow mechanism, and I was just like, how do you balance all of these different conflicting ideas? And he's like, I just go do all of them. And I was like, yeah, that's what I feel like, like, and just like all the things, let's just go do all of them. But through it all, I think I think like everything else, it's just teaching me something. What's been interesting is I've been going back and watching those episodes, and as I go back and watch them, I learn something new every single
Mhm.
time. And I think that's what's been really beautiful about what we've put together. Um, it's strange seeing my face on video, like talking in that format, and
Yeah,
that's new for me. Um, but I think it's been beautiful so far.
yeah, it's phenomenal. Sometimes I forget that people are listening and people are watching, because I get uh, caught up in the moment with myself and you and our guest, and it's like, okay, there's just two of us, there's just three of us, and it's like, well, no, there's people out there that are listening.
Yeah,
um, and how are we speaking to all of them, and not really, like, whatever, right? This is what's coming through, and this is the sharing. um, I love it. To me, it's fascinating, not having that concern of what it's going to sound like.
yeah,
um, and I love that our guests feel that freedom, even though some of them have frozen and held back a little bit. I do feel that as well. And it's natural. I love that because it shows where that inward journey goes.
hmm,
When it's like, oh wait, I don't know if I want to go there. I mean, Yuli to me was like, I mean, that level of vulnerability. It's I live my life like this, so I can resonate with it. And then my expectations and judgments are the same. It's like, oh, I want everybody to be this open. It's like, wait, no, accept, right? It's my inner dialogue, right? We don't have to push everyone through that fire and that edge of life all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Maybe. You know what's been interesting, and I came into when you talked about and said, hey, let's just do a talk with just us this time. I didn't really have any, and we don't ever have any set agenda or like, hey, these are the things that we're going to go through. I think things just flow organically, and that's what's beautiful about it. But there is a topic that keeps coming up for me, and I was wondering if we could start out with that topic today. Now, I've been going through this process of abundance life practice, right? Just feeling abundance, being in abundance all the time, feeling it come to me, that connection, me connecting to others and my higher self, and throughout that process, just being in my body. And something that I've also been doing recently is how to connect my soul with the soul of the universe, with the universal consciousness, and together making things happen, like telling the universe, hey, this is what I want, feeling it being done, feeling it being accomplished. And one of the things that is coming up through these practices are my fears. Like when I'm so deep in there, the things that are blocking me come up. Now, one of the things that it's been a fear that stood with me for a very long time is the fear of my family dying.
Yeah.
Right? Not myself, like not fear of me dying, but fear of my family dying, and just death in general all around. Now, I was listening to this documentary on Netflix, or seeing it, called the Ram Dass documentary, where it's a short film during the end of his life, and he says something which really resonated with me, and he goes, death is not a error, death is not a failure. And people view it in that way because, hey, if I get to this point, it's a failure, right? But death is a level of transformation to such an extent it's going to be the biggest transformation you've ever experienced, right? So it's to be looked forward to and to be cherished. Now, some people may know this conceptually, others may not. But let's just say, for example, people who do know this conceptually, they are practicing mindfulness, they're practicing spirituality, but similar to me, there's this concept of death coming around and the fear that it can bring. How do you see that in all that? Like, what's your response to that when I bring up all of these things?
Well, there are a few points that you've made in connection to abundance, connecting to the abundance of the universe, fear of death of the family, and now the question is, there are a couple of questions, there are a couple of pointings. For me, and to address maybe the first one regarding abundance and to be in the abundant field, we're currently in our last few days of our yoga teacher training here in Costa Rica. So this practice and sharing from this space is fresh, and it's my constant reminder. And the go-to for me with these points of is that we're always connected to the abundance of everything. We're always connected to the abundance of soul, spirit, universe, whatever we want to call it. So there's nothing to connect to there, right? There's nothing to go to. It's rather deprogram what we think we're actually connected to in a tangible form, like mentally, our thoughts, what we think we're attached to, physically, what we think we're attached to, emotionally, what we think we're attached to. And it's seeing these and deprogramming this to experience more interconnectivity with source, abundance, and all these things, which is it's almost like counterintuitive in a way, right? Because on the spiritual path, a lot of people gravitates towards more spirituality and forget that we're human, having this human experience, and we have feelings, and sometimes feelings are sensing, and emotions are being labeled as good and bad and this and that, and they're just feelings. And we're always going to have these feelings so long as we exist in this form, right? We're always going to be sensing and labeling what we're sensing. I feel the great misconception is that we think that we're not going to feel pain in the future, or we think we're not going to suffer in great deal mentally, emotionally, or physically in the future. We think that we are not going to die and the people around us are not going to die. And when we live life this way, we miss out on the raw beauty of living and existing like nature, right? And as far as death, I mean, anyone in the spiritual practice ideally is practicing being face to face as close as possible to death, because this is what brings us face to face as close as possible to living. It's happening right now. Our bodies are deteriorating. We are decaying. We are parts of us are fading away, are dying, as parts of us are being born. Cells, new ideas, new memories, new sensations, and these. This is the constant. It's a concept. I get it, and I've read and I've studied, and it's part of my practice. But to come really close face to face with it, this is when the practice gets really raw, and this is where the push for me comes. And having people in my life pass away, and how do I celebrate their transcendence? How do I not hold on to the idea of them, to the memory of them, to the thought of them, and just stay present with myself? It sounds very selfish, but if they have passed, the practice is to allow them to pass, right? Imagine if all the romantic relationships were holding on to us as we say, hey, it's over, and we had all these relationships holding on to a thread of us, like, oh no, you're not going to move on, right? How painful would this be to have all these things, all these partners pulling from us? And the same thing is with the passing of a dear one. It's the same. It's like that's going to happen. Maybe it's going to happen. Maybe we get to live it, maybe not. What's important is what's relevant is how are we present with ourselves in our relationship with our loved ones at the highest, in an abundant form, in love, because we're not going to be here forever.
So when you say coming face to face and that practice, what are and I can talk about some things that I've encountered where you come face to face with that and try and accept that and acknowledge that. And Ramdas yesterday was also saying the same thing. The only way you can live an incredibly beautiful life is to always have somewhere in your consciousness that you are going to die. Because if you have that, then you are truly appreciating and living in the moment and acknowledging, like, hey, this is the true amazingness and incredibleness of what I've been offered, right? And like you mentioned, conceptually, you read about it, and there's a few ways to do it. But how do you go through this fear? Not like avoid this fear. How do you go through this fear, accept it, and cherish it in a way that when it comes, you're like, oh, thank you. I've been waiting for you. Thank you for this incredible transformation and this gift that you're bringing to me now. Thank you for this gift that you brought to my family and my parents. So even though I am connected with them in a different way than I was before, and I think that's what it is. I think it's the physical form dying. That's the fear, right? It's not maybe, and this is just coming organically up for me right now. Maybe it's the fact that there isn't that level of spiritual bond that has been established because the physical form is mattering so much at the moment, right? So Yeah, that's just coming up for me, and maybe that's an invitation for me to see, okay, how can I build a spiritual bond even more so that no matter where they are, no matter what form they take, there's always that connection. Right? What are some of your practices? How do you, and I know that, you have different relationships with different members of your family, and how do you keep that distance in context with that connection, right? With your parents or with other family members? How does that, you being in Costa Rica and them being in somewhere in the United States, I think in Miami, right?
Yep.
Um, how does that connection take place? That
Um,
spiritual connection.
yeah. Well, every time I think of myself in relationship to my immediate family, my mom, my dad, um, I feel great peace in my heart, and I feel harmony. I feel joy. I take myself intentionally, willfully to moments of the past where I didn't feel this in relationship with my mom and my dad. Um, and I see those moments of the past and growing up, the discomforts, the times where, the miscommunication, the lack of communication. And this is, I mean, this is work that I've been doing since I was 18 years old. So I'm 43. So there's a lot of processing that I've already done in acceptance and self-forgiveness and and sharing, experiencing and sharing this love for them. So, fast forward from 18 to 40, age of 43 now, it's like when I think of them, there isn't any pain, anything that I'm holding on to. And if something does creep through there, that is subconscious uh, in my psychology, then I get to address that from a place of love and from a place of acceptance and honest. Um, every meal that I have, I pray and give thanks for my lineage and for my parents. Every single meal, every day. So if I'm having 3 meals, that's 3 times I'm praying for myself in relationship with my lineage and my parents, giving thanks and feeling gratitude. So this feeling when I speak to them once a week or once every 2 weeks. It's sensory. It's like, hey, how are you feeling? How are you doing? What's going on in your life? And then we move on to the fun stuff, and or maybe this COVID crap, whatever. It's we move on to the other stuff. And always the sensation is the reminding each other like, hey, by the way, I'm doing good. I'm okay. I'm stable. I'm secure. Because in essence, this is what we want to be in support of. And then how are you feeling emotionally? We can hear that in each other's voice, um, and allow ourselves that space to hold space for each other if there's anything that needs to be shared. Um, and coming from this place of love, it to me is enough. Now, I know they're going to die. Maybe I died before them. And the question is, do I feel love when I think of them? Did I feel it yesterday? Am I feeling it now? Am I in harmony when I think of them? This is what's most important to me. I hope, not hope, but I yeah, I hope and wish that they feel the same way. I can't control that. I don't know that if when they think of me or when they think of their parents, right? But this I can control.
Mhm.
And it feels good and it's enough for me.
Describe that feeling, Pablo.
Of enough.
Of enough. Yeah, I think that's I think one of the biggest failings of Western society is this
Yeah,
concept of not being enough. That's the biggest failing in my opinion. Like brand agencies sell to you that way, marketing companies sell to you,
sure.
right?
The enough is the you're feeling completely content in relationship to, speaking of my parents or, my family, is feeling that, am I doing enough? What I'm doing is enough. Can I be doing more? Perhaps. However, let's focus in what I'm doing is enough. And from that space, to more, open up to more, not there's more, I can be doing better. Because from this space of enough, I'm telling myself and the universe is telling me like, yeah, this is enough. And if more is asked of you, or if different dynamic expressions are asked of you on how to give more, I'm available to step into that. So that's enough. My parents supporting me and taking care of themselves, me trusting that they're taking care of themselves, and is enough. I trust enough. I accept them enough.
You know
These
what?
are my,
Sorry, I just want to interrupt because there's something that you just said that I want to touch on. There is a difference in the feeling of enough and saying, I am open and accepting to anything that comes that way. But there's also, as we've heard with a few of our guest speakers, is coming from a place of not feeling enough, of being in scarcity, where they're like, let's go forward, let's push more, let's try to get more, let's try to grab more, let's try to take more. And they're both moving forward, right? But that foundation that you just mentioned is a little different than how Rob practiced it when initially he wasn't in that place, right? And I just wanted to highlight that for the viewers of this program, that there's a difference in what Pablo is saying, is feeling that contentment and saying, I am open, I surrender to this world, I receive what it brings me, versus, I'm not feeling that great. What if I grab this? What if I go do this? And that's going to help fulfill that anxiety.
yeah. Yeah. You know, this is why we're not educated upon death, because if you look at society in larger capitalist empires, the United States, Europe, and countries, it's like the elders are hidden. They're put away in homes. You don't see them in the street. You don't see them in magazines. You don't see them in advertisements. It's like they don't exist. So there's this idea that everyone's young and beautiful and everyone's productive and everyone can be all that they can be. So when I travel living here in Costa Rica, I mean, I see 80, 85-year-old men walking every morning, like carrying these big containers filled with milk on their back. Or when I go to Peru, you see the elderly just like carrying these sacks of potato on their heads. And it's like you see the elderly wrinkled and strong. You see the elderly weak and dying. So it's a reality. I haven't been to India, but places like India, you see the elderly walking up to the Ganges, waiting for the Brahmins and the Babas walking to the Ganges, waiting to take their last breath. You see the bodies floating on the Ganges, from what I've heard and I've read. So death is very real. So there's this joy and appreciation for life because we are so connected to the fact that we die, right? And I think this is a huge difference, because when we have this false illusion that we are going to always live in this well-kept and maintained body and well-kept and maintained life and well-groomed, right, and maintained life, we miss out on getting messy, right? Because we don't want to feel pain. We don't want to get hurt. We don't want to fail. And everything's got to be perfect, right? Even the idea of being in a flow state has got to be perfect, and surrendering has got to be pretty, and our spiritual path has to be pretty and perfect, right? And I mock this because I like people to get triggered, right? It's got to sound perfect. It's got to sound beautiful, and the reality is that it's messy. I mean, look at nature. It's messy, and we think that we're not that. We think that we're something else. It's like we're natural. We forget.
And it's, what's interesting, it's that messiness is as hidden as the elderly that you just described.
Yes.
I had before we started this, I was like, do I trim this right here, the dying part of this tree, or do I just keep it as it is? And it's just a reminder to me when I look at this. It's just like, hey, it's there. and that's what's so beautiful about it. I think, you know, what is so interesting what you bring up, because there's this harmony, and you hear this harmony of nature, harmony of people working together, and the messiness of it, but the beauty of it all together. There's beauty in that messiness too. I think of this, and I, you know, speaking of Pixar movies, there's this movie Inside Out. I don't know if you've seen it, right? It's I love that movie because you see,
About the emotions, the one about the
yeah,
emotions.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah,
right, and you've got these little balls, right, that coming in of all of these emotions, and they're portraying all of these different emotions in different ways. But when you look at that ball as a whole, like you look at that, if I gave you that ball of sadness, just you didn't know what it was, and you just looked at it, it's like this beautiful glowing pearly white light, like pearly blue white light. And then the anger is like similar, it's just like red and glowing. It's beautiful,
yeah.
right? And I just loved the way that they showed that, because to me that was like, okay, the people that the emotions that they're representing, there's beauty in that inherently, and there's messiness in that, so much messiness and anger and sadness. And you know, that's something that I've dealt with personally too. Like, how do you, I was a very angry kid, right? How do you take, and it's something that's coming into my mind, and what my practice is recently is, at a certain point in time, I recognized that I could get a lot of energy from this anger, from this feeling, right? Like there's a lot of power that can come from this concept of anger. And I had to work on noticing that the emotion isn't required for the power, right?
Mm.
And that was a very nuanced thing for me, where I was like, I was getting angry, and I was like, how do I draw energy from this? How do I draw power from this? How do I go lift some weights or do well at work, or even when I'm meditating, right? How do I want not go on this path of accomplishing things? But now it's a little different, where I'm like, how do I step into my power with courage and not anger? And that anger has, that feeling of anger is still there, but I noticed that as being disconnected, that anger being disconnected, but the courage, like feeling like that Superman, you know, when Superman is just like feeling, just when you have that courage in face of everything, that being the source of strength, of feeling like whatever comes, you know, I will accept it, I will be open and I will accept it.
Mm.
Right? And that's been really beautiful for me.
I like that. And how do we even know if it's the correct or the right or the fitting label to that energy, that sensation, to call it anger? Or right, because if it's this feeling of, or feeling like I feel like a Superman, is that anger? Is that uh exaggerated joy?
Mm.
uh is it angry love? Is it powerful love? Is it aggressive humility? Is it an aggressive savior? Like, you know, it's like we put these boxes and these labels, and it's just for based on the learnings and the teachings, it's just energy moving through.
Mm-hmm.
And can we give ourselves the permission to feel whatever we think, and give ourselves the permission to label it whatever we want to label it, as long as we allow ourselves the space to feel it?
Mm-hmm.
um do we have permission to be angry, to be sad, to be angry at our parents, to be angry at ourselves for being angry at our parents, to be to feel sadness, to feel low vibration, to feel high, to feel empowered, um, knowing that it's passing through. By the time the mind is putting it in a label, it's already reached there, right? Or the mind went to it, they already met. It's like, ooh, sensation. Oh, uh, let's let's compute this,
Yeah.
and let's find a label for it. And it's like, well, none of that shit is true. The only thing that's true is the sensation, right? And this, you know, we learn from the Buddha. It's like, oh, this is what's happening is just a sensation. And the mind, it's like all of a sudden has this need to be like, whoa, we got to do something about this. And it's like, no, we don't. Right? No, we don't. We don't have to do anything about it. And that's what gets us into trouble, because that's when we start to create the aversion, right? Pushing away, or the craving. Ooh, good sensation. I'm going to keep this one. Ooh, bad sensation. I don't want this one. However, the bad one takes up more real estate in my life. Interesting, right? Because when we think about, oh, how many good memories can you point out? And then like how many bad memories, sad memories can you point out? It's like that list tends to be bigger and hold more dramatic space. And the trauma, oh, the trauma, right?
I think
None of it matters.
I think there's this is my current point in time practice, right? They've shifted as I've encountered people, as I've grown, as I've changed. But my practice right now is just, hey, if I'm noticing myself not at a 10 level of connection, just in my mind, what I currently know to be 10, I'm going to stop. I'm going to be grateful. I'm going to be open to whatever the feeling is within me, right? And I'm going to look at it from that perspective. And I went through Vipassana, so, you know, Buddha's teachings, and read a lot of books about Buddha. Grew up in India, been to, you know, various Buddhist temples. And what I found for me personally, which is different right now, and I'm having a hard time reconciling this, is on one end, there's full acceptance, right? There's that meditative state and there's full acceptance, and like whatever is coming, it is okay and it will pass. You know, anicca, it will pass. Everything is impermanent. On the other side is, how do you, in the midst of all of that, let's say the negativity is coming up, how do you develop the feelings that help you on a day-to-day basis encounter and face the situations you need to face with energy, with vitality? And I love when you use this word, and then you are such a vital person, like you can feel the vitality when you're on Pablo, right? So how do you bring that vitality into your practice? Not everybody has the energy after putting in a 10-hour workday to do yoga as much as you do, or to meditate as much as you do, to live in Costa Rica, right? Not everybody has those. And I know that you've crafted this life for yourself, but it's not happening for everybody. It may be possible, but it's just not happening for everybody. So how do you bring that vitality and that practice of vitality into your everyday life, right? And that's, I feel like, what I'm working on right now, where the vitality is coming from that connection and that openness, and that connection is giving me that energy where I'm like in full Superman courage mode, not anger, but courage mode. Like, hey, yes, I got whatever is going to come my way. I'm abundant. Everything that is coming my way and I'm giving out is abundant, and everybody around me has that, right? So that's my practice. But tell us, Pablo, what are your practices, and how do you feel about that approach that I'm taking versus some things that you've seen in your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. And for me, my practice is come to center. My mantra is Om Namah Shivaya. All right, I praise to the Lord Shiva, the Lord of destruction and creation. And that to me brings me to the remembrance that everything is being destroyed right now and everything is in creation right now. So my perception and idea of what is happening right now is being destroyed. Om Namah Shivaya. I can't control anything. And in that presence, I get curious about the moment and about how I'm feeling about the moment and how I'm computing my feelings about the moment. This is the practice. Sure, I get triggered. Sure, I get moved. Sure, I get moved out of center. And I get to feel that. And it's like, oh, I'm feeling my stomach tightening. Oh, I'm feeling judgment based on what I just felt about my stomach tightening. Oh, I'm feeling judgment towards this person, opinion. I think this person's an asshole. Oh, check. Got it. It came all the way from here. Got it. Okay, whoa, I just did that. Om Namah Shivaya. Right? And it's like, bring it here, bring it here, bring it here, bring it here, bring it here. And it doesn't matter why I thought that. It doesn't matter why I felt that. The truth is that I felt it. And the truth is I computed that. I reasoned, I logic, and then this came out. So it's like, come back to center, come back to center. And that keeps me vital. And I recognize when I'm not in center, when I'm shifting, right? And there's a beautiful analogy. When you put a stick on the ground and you move it, you shake it, it's wobbly. You hammer it until it's no longer wobbly. But you keep hammering it and you keep wobbling it and you keep hammering it and you keep wobbling. And eventually at some point it will stay firm. So this is the practice. Just to wobble and keep getting hammered by life, circumstances, right, by the brain. And you'll notice where you keep shaking and eventually you come to center and things change, the soil change, you know, wind, this, life, and we start doing this, and then the hammer comes, and this is the practice, right? And this is what works for me, and to be able to see when I'm not aligned and I'm not in my center is the gift of seeing. It's like, okay, opportunity to practice. I see, I'm aware, the veil has been lifted, practice, and enjoy myself, like laugh at myself. I think people are assholes sometimes. I think I'm an asshole sometimes. And like what a gift. I get to see that. And it's like, well, it doesn't matter why, because it happened, right? I have limiting beliefs sometimes. It's like I see them and it's like, oh, wow, I see it. Doesn't matter why. What's the focus? Om Namah Shivaya. Come back to center. Like, what's happening here? Like, oh, yeah, the universe is happening. This is real. Okay, cool.
That's beautiful, Pablo. That's beautiful. It would be, I think it would be, how does Om Namah Shivaya, this mantra, and you know, my mom's praying outside and I can hear her pray, and she's praying, she's got Shiva and Kali and Saraswati all in Ganesh, like all around. And I sometimes say my mom has a hotline, you know, she picks up the phone and she's connected, you know, like she's like that kind of person. And I can see with her, but I see a lot of similarities with what you're talking, but this feeling of Om Namah Shivaya and that energy that's needed. Like you're doing a full day of yoga teacher training. You got a baby on the way. Your wife's uncomfortable because the baby's coming. You know, you've got workers working at your house. You got students that are asking lots of questions. Oh, man, it's just like, oh, it's such a long day, you know? It's 9 p.m. and you got to go do one more thing or two more things or three more things. And it's not ending. That moment after that day, where does that vitality come from? Where does that energy come from? What is that path or that path to that vitality, and what is the source of that vitality, and how do you bring that up in that moment?
When the being present with, you know, the relationships of teacher training, with the, you know, with Sarah, with the baby, with life, with workers, and there's nothing to respond to anymore. I just don't respond. That's it. It's couch time. It's chill out, lay back, and that's it. I mean, it's, you know, that's my celebration. It's like, sit back and, you know, have a glass of, you know, when we're in training, we don't drink alcohol, but every now and then I'll have a glass of wine, listen to some music. I'll enjoy like a fine piece of beautiful, fresh tobacco. and just sit back and really savor that moment of doing absolutely nothing, to the point where I want to get to that point where I start to feel boredom. Where I start to feel boredom, I'm in a good place. I have arrived. I'm like, yes, boredom, laziness, let it consume me. Let it take me away. Nothing to read, nothing, just do nothing. Don't respond to anything, right? Even Sarah will talk to me and be like, love, I'm not present with you right now. I'm consumed by nothing. And or just contemplating my thoughts, or the day, but just really do nothing.
It's a good feeling to do nothing. But let's say it's a different scenario. And what I was trying to say is you're getting to that point where you're exhausted at the end of the day, right? But there's tasks are still coming. Where does Pablo, one of the most vital people I know, filled with vitality people I know, where does that vitality come from in that moment?
The presence is to be present is enough. It's the moment I start to think of what I need to, let's say, it's before hitting the couch, and there's things that I need to be done and be present with. If I'm choose to be present with these elements, I don't feel tired. And
Mm,
this is a great pendulum for me, because having a 10-hour day in teacher training, and coming home, I may feel physically a little bit tired or sore, uh, but mentally I'm good. I'm solid. Um, when I start to get lazy, sure, my brain is not sharp, um, but I still feel a good energy.
mm,
And that's how I'm responding to the world. If I need to speak to workers, if I need to be present with my meal, it's like good. It feels good because I haven't exhausted myself to the point where I'm drained.
mm,
And that's the key, because everything that I choose to do, I'm doing it in passion, in love, in integrity, in harmony. It feels great, because I want to and I choose to do it. I desire to do it from heart, not from the mind. If not, then I get in trouble, because I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I here? What time is it? I wish this day was over. I should be resting. People are asking me stuff. I don't want to answer. Now I'm aggravated. Now I'm frustrated. I don't want to do this, because I set myself up to be in that position of frustration,
mhm,
because I sold out on myself to put myself in places I don't really want to be in.
mm. And
Right? So, having relationships that are good. If I'm hanging out with people that are solid and connected, um, and I'm not wasting energy and time, I feel good leaving those relationships and going on to my day. I don't feel drained. So I don't waste my time with individuals that are wasting their time, right? It's like, we mean to be here. So this is good,
mhm,
right?
and I
And
think there's so much beauty in what you just said, and I just want to highlight a few things that you just said. Negative people will take away your time, will take away your energy, and you will be stuck in this cycle. Even if you're trying, I feel like even if you're trying to work and go on this path of awareness of present, being in the present of spirituality, it's important that you're setting yourself up for success, right? And like anything, and I think that's the preparation is how do you, I mean, and maybe, and this is a beautiful point. Maybe probably it would be helpful to comment on this too, because my personal opinion is if somebody's being negative, I'm just not going to take that on, right? I can be compassionate. I don't need to be empathetic, like, right? Two different things. However, I accept that they're being the way that they are. And I feel this sometimes with my dad, for example. I'm just like, when my dad drinks, I don't like to talk to him, right? I'm just like, I'll be showing tremendous amount of love. There's a lot of awareness. There's a lot of compassion throughout the day. But when the time comes where he knocks back a few drinks, I just don't talk to him. Right? That's not an area, and this is very personal for me. But that's not an area where I'm like, hey, let me expose myself to this, right? But it's there, and I know it's there, right? So my practice during that time is just like, hey, I'm going to give you love and I'm going to give you compassion. I'm going to give you support, but there is going to be a little bit of distance here. Right? And that allows me to be fully present within my body. Right? So, how do you, and I know you had similar kind of cases in your life too, similar kind of um, circumstances. How How have you encountered those? Is it similar to what I've done, or has it been a little different?
Yeah, I resonate. It's it's similar, and it's always changing and evolving, because the ideal is to not allow oneself to be moved by anything external, absolutely anything. So how can I be present with any and every situation with discernment,
Mm-hmm.
right? And stay in my field, in my centeredness.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a very strong, again, like a very strong practice, because my ego tends to get personal and get personally involved with what I perceive is happening and what I perceive to like or dislike.
Mm-hmm.
So once I get personally involved with that, now I'm entangled with that. So now I start to suffer, because now I'm like, I like this. I want more of it. I don't like this. I don't want it. And the ideal, not ideal, the practice is to be in the center where we can observe, like, oh, this is cool. I like having this conversation with this person. Then the conversation evolves into something completely dramatic, completely like low. And I'm like, ooh, I don't like this. I'm not feeling it. I'm feeling low. And it's like, well, if we're feeling high, it's because we got personally involved with that high vibe conversation. If we're feeling low, we got personally involved with that low vibe conversation. And the practice is to be present and not touched. Like, can we look at every character like, oh, I see this character playing out their dramatic acting way in this drama of life, in this stage of life, and I can just see it like it's a movie, right? Whichever way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting because I can notice myself when I'm getting personally involved and either feeding into the low vibration type conversation, and feeling it like, whoa, this is getting heavy. What part of my ego and my character likes this, resonates with this? And then I can see myself with the high vibration. It's like, well, what part of my ego and my character resonates with this, right? And then I ask myself, well, which character do I want to choose to be in resonance with? I pick a good one. Let's pick the positive one, right? However, the practice is the reminder that I'm also the one that I perceive to be negative, because
Mm-hmm.
I have moments of lows as well. And can I be with that and be one with it, right? Because we are in the practice of being all one. I'm you, you are me, we are one. And this is all good. So, I mean, imagine if Jesus walking through the desert meeting the devil, it's like, oh, you know what, devil, like your vibe is kind of like, I'm not feeling it, bro. So I'm going to go the other way. So it's like, I mean, that's where we get to come face to face with literally our demons and our shadow and our dark side. It's not bad. These are just labels. They're not demons. They're not evil. It's not the dark side. It's just energy moving. It's just parts of what we are, what we've been ever since the humanity, ever since the being has existed and has had desires. It's all these things are going to exist forever, and it's not good or bad. That's my practice. However, I don't like to hang around people that are extremely dramatic, either whether they're really extremely positive and it's all good and they're always, smiling and it's like, yay, life is good. And it's like, no, it's not, dude. It's not. It's not sustainable. You're not perfect. Neither am I. I mean, Muji, Krishnamurti, all these great spiritual leaders get angry, they get upset, they have bad moments. And it's like, well, who am I now to be with my teacher and be like, oh, my teacher's having a bad day. He's being kind of negative. I'm not going to be around that. What do I learn from that? Nothing. Be around it because there's more learning from it, right? Not identifying with it and getting entangled with it is the practice. Can I go into a prison hall and be with rapists and murderers and be myself and share myself and value my space, be centered, and hold space for murderers, rapists to express themselves, to share themselves, to be themselves, and not be entangled with it, and not and relate, to be able to relate, to be in relationship, right? This is what's hard.
Wow. Yeah, it is hard.
It's hard. That's why I live in Costa Rica. It's easier here. Yeah.
On a daily basis, and I think one of the best things that's been with our show is a lot of people have talked about what they do on a daily basis, right?
What? I'm sorry?
A lot of people have talked about what they do on a daily basis, their
Mm-hmm.
practices on a daily basis. And I think for today's show, for the last 5-10 minutes as we wrap this up, I think it would be helpful if if we go through some of the practices that we do, and just what the evolution of that has been as well, right? I think we've talked about that as well. So there's, as you said, what you're practicing today is not going to be the same thing as maybe what you're practicing tomorrow, because you're going to be getting learnings from today as well, right? So I would love if you, Pablo, if you close it, but I'd like to start, and then would love your just closing this show today. So for me, the biggest thing right now is taking care of my mind and taking care of my body. There's now 20 people working at my company, right? How can I be there for myself first and love myself first and take care of myself first so I can look after all of those people, right? We led a meditation exercise with the entire company on a virtual Zoom 2 days ago, and it was incredible, right? And there's so much honesty and transparency that's coming within the organization because of the changes that I'm feeling within myself, right? There's like so many things are just open in the organization that generally wouldn't be, right? And the difference in that is what I'm working on right now is the feelings of irritation or anger that come up when stuff isn't getting done as quickly as I want it to, right? And this is my practice right now, how do I recognize where that anger is on a connection scale? And it's at a 5. Out of a 1 to 10 scale, I'm at a 5 when I'm angry, right? And I want my baseline to be 10 and then expand it from there. But I'm at a 5, right? What is going on at that 5 connection? And why am I there? What is the closure? What is the anxiety? What is the stress? What is the fear that's coming up in that moment? And just looking at that so that I can be a better leader. I can be in better touch with my emotions. I can be more compassionate, but I can give that energy that I have, the abundance of energy that everybody has, but just fill my entire team with it. Right? So that's my current practice and something that's the top of mind for me right now. Would love to hear what your biggest one right now is too, Pablo.
Remembering to put the toilet seat down. Yes. Yeah. You know, the bacteria, Sarah's always like, the bacteria that comes out of the toilet, please, when you use the bathroom, put the toilet seat down. Um, it's my practice. It's really to keep it simple, so simple, and to be very present with as many moments as I can. And check in with myself and check in with my space, how I'm holding my space and how I'm leaving my space for others to be present with themselves. Um, it's been a valuable practice to be mindful of my words and to share transparently, unconditionally, and just be in complete and full acceptance of every situation and everyone is my practice. To not have this clinging or attachment to any principle, any technique, any teachings, any methods, any systems, and to really come back, always come forth to myself, come forth to myself. This is, to me, is enough, and just really enjoy and celebrate, enjoy and celebrate, enjoy and celebrate. This is my practice right now. And it changes, like you said, and like I've said before, it's changing. There are gonna be times where this is not in support. Just this practice of putting the toilet seat down, of being mindful of my space, of washing my own dishes and washing up, you know, washing Sarah's dishes and helping with the laundry, right? And supporting her as best as I can. When these little points are being missed, then I may need something a little bit more aggressive to bring me forth into center again, to be reminded. So yeah, I may need to get the body more involved so that the body moves aggressively, the mind gets sharpened, right? So this is where yoga practice or meditation may, you know, is definitely going to come in handy. So yeah, this is it. Toilet seat down. Flush and make sure it all goes. That's it.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Thanks, Pablo. Thank you for your time today.
Oh, thank you for your time, bro. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Yeah, man. Great talking to you always, man.